Welcome to the debate. This is the Friday debate. Right now, North Korea is actively manufacturing electromagnetic blackout bombs capable of paralyzing entire cities, and they're feeding advanced ballistic missiles directly into the Russian war machine.
Right. It's a massive escalation.
It really is, and the central question we have to answer today is this. Is Kim Jong-un actively preparing for a multi-domain conflict? Or, are we witnessing the most elaborate, calculated geopolitical bluff in modern history?
That is, it's certainly one of the most high-stakes analytical challenges we face today. Because when you track these active military developments, the line between an aggressive demonstration of power and actual preparation for war is, it's extraordinarily thin.
Precisely. And that is why today we are presenting a specialized format. This is the Stylo News Strategic Debate. Our objective here is to deliver a very measured, strictly factual, and professional examination of these current events.
Right. A very classic, calm, sort of 1960s anchor approach. We are looking at the data without generating unnecessary alarm or leaning into fear.
Exactly. Keep it factual. This program is sponsored by ProWave AI and generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application.
And for our audience, it is really important to understand what that technology is. Stylo News is actually the consumer version of the Stylo Intel Ops software.
Right, the enterprise version.
Yes, that is a highly sophisticated system utilized globally for enterprise operations across, government, military, and corporate sectors. So the analysis we are doing here provides you with unique access to the exact types of tools designed to support high-level global decision-makers.
It really bridges that gap. So our strategic focus today, April 24, 2026, centers on the Asia region, specifically the Korean Peninsula. And the central debate we're unpacking is whether North Korea's recent military escalation is a positioning tactic for diplomatic leverage or a genuine preparation for outright conflict.
A vital distinction.
I will be arguing the first position. My perspective is that North Korea's actions, while highly aggressive, represent calculated, coercive diplomacy. They are designing these moves to gain leverage and force international recognition as a nuclear state, but without intending to actually cross the threshold into a catastrophic war.
And I will be examining the opposing perspective. I argue that the qualitative advancements we are seeing in North Korea's weaponry, combined with their deep, active integration into the Russian military apparatus, it indicates a genuine, irreversible preparation for tactical warfighting.
So you think it's past posturing?
I do. The facts on the ground suggest this has escalated far beyond mere posturing.
Well, let's start by looking at the operational reality on the border, because that is really the foundation of the deterrence and leverage perspective. Over the past few weeks, we have seen high-profile ballistic missile tests from the Sinpo area and
the cruise missile launches, right?
Exactly, from their new 5,000-ton destroyer. But when intelligence agencies evaluate whether an attack is truly imminent, they don't just look at missile tests. They look for operational indicators.
You are referring to the logistics footprint.
Precisely. A military simply cannot launch a ground war without a massive logistical surge. We would need to see the mass mobilization of ground troops, the physical dispersal of artillery units right up to the demilitarized zone, reserve call-ups.
Moving fuel and blood.
Yes. Massive convoys moving fuel, blood, and ammunition to the front lines. The intelligence assessments we rely on consistently show a glaring absence of those indicators.
Right.
If Kim Jong-un were preparing for actual conflict, those trucks would be moving. Because they are not, we have to look at his primary objective, which is regime survival. He is exploiting current regional distractions, like the U.S.-Iran conflicts, to manufacture a crisis.
To secure a bargaining position.
Exactly. It is a strategy of calibrated coercion ahead of the major U.S.-China summit coming up in May.
Well, I hear you, and I'm looking at the exact same missing logistics trucks you are. But I think you're misreading modern military doctrine entirely.
Oh, how so?
We aren't in the 20th century anymore, and North Korea's doctrine has evolved. The capabilities they are actively testing right now are inherently offensive, asymmetric, and tactical. They just don't need 1 million men marching to the border to initiate a paralyzing first strike.
Okay, walk me through that. How does the nature of these specific weapons change the calculus from deterrence to active war preparation?
Look at what they tested between April 6th and 8th. They didn't just test standard artillery. They tested ballistic missiles equipped with advanced cluster munitions.
Right. The wide area ones.
Yes, these are warheads capable of utterly destroying 7-hectare areas in a single strike. More importantly, they are testing electromagnetic blackout bombs.
Wow.
Yeah, these are not explosive weapons meant to destroy a building. They emit an electromagnetic pulse designed specifically to fry civilian and military power grids.
So instantaneous paralysis.
Precisely. These are first strike weapons meant to blind an adversary's command and control in the opening minutes of a conflict. And frankly, the most alarming indicator is their relationship with Russia. By supplying KN-23 and KN-24 solid-fuel ballistic missiles for active use in Ukraine, Pyongyang isn't just emptying old warehouses.
You believe they are using Ukraine as a laboratory?
Exactly. They are getting something invaluable out of this: real-world combat data against Western air defense systems.
Right, the Patriot systems.
Yes. The Patriot missile batteries currently defending Kyiv are the exact same systems defending Seoul and Tokyo. You do not field test your premier tactical ballistic missiles in an active European war zone if you're merely looking for a diplomatic off-ramp. You do it to learn how to bypass the exact air defenses you plan to face in your own theater.
Well, let's break down that logic, because while the tactical testing in Ukraine is a massive intelligence gain for them, it doesn't automatically equal an intent to start a war in Asia.
But the data gathering is so specific to warfighting.
It is, but let's look at the electromagnetic blackout bombs you mentioned. Testing a blackout bomb isn't necessarily a preparation for a physical ground invasion. It's the geopolitical equivalent of holding a powerful electromagnet over your opponent's data servers. It is a kill switch for the local economy.
It's an intimidation tactic.
Exactly. By demonstrating they have a weapon capable of instant asymmetric paralysis, they are proving they can bypass South Korean defenses without having to deploy a single tank. You don't have to pull the trigger to force an adversary to the negotiating table. The mere capability of instant paralysis is the leverage. They want to alter the psychological balance of power, forcing the US and South Korea to take them seriously as an equal.
I see your point, but the physical response from the alliance shows they view this as a genuine physical threat, not just a psychological one.
The land system?
Yes. Look at South Korea's reaction to these specific capabilities. Seoul has drastically accelerated the deployment of their low-altitude missile defense system. This is essentially an iron dome for South Korea, designed specifically to intercept the exact type of low-flying maneuvering threats like the KN-23.
They are definitely taking it seriously.
Right. The South Korean military understands that an electromagnetic weapon or a cluster munition strike fundamentally cripples their ability to respond. And we see this reflected in public sentiment, too.
Oh, definitely. The social media reaction has been intense.
Exactly. If you look at platforms like X, tracking hashtags like hashtag North Korea and hashtag Korean Peninsula, the sentiment is overwhelmingly anxious. Sources like Euronews Arabic and Focus UA are rigorously documenting the shift toward asymmetric warfare. The hardware being deployed proves the threat of a sudden, tactical strike is viewed as highly credible.
The social media sentiment absolutely reflects high anxiety. But again, that is precisely the psychological effect North Korea aims to achieve. We must carefully distinguish between public fear, which is easily manipulated by dramatic weapons tests, and the military reality on the ground.
But the hardware is real.
The hardware is real. But broad public and intelligence consensus still assesses the risk of an unprovoked ground invasion as low. North Korea knows it cannot win a conventional, protracted war against the US-South Korean alliance. That is why they are developing cluster munitions and blackout bombs. They have to present an unacceptable cost of intervention.
Deterrence by punishment.
Exactly. If Washington knows that intervening means Seoul's power grid goes dark instantly, Washington might hesitate.
Well, deterrence assumes a desire to maintain the status quo, to be left alone. But when we look at the internal dynamics of the regime, they do not look like a government trying to maintain the status quo.
You're looking at the nuclear infrastructure?
I am. The International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi recently issued a stark warning about a very serious increase in nuclear weapons production at the Yongbyon facility. He is estimating an arsenal of dozens of new warheads. And then we had the recent intelligence leak regarding the Kusong uranium enrichment facility.
Right, but the Kusong leak actually perfectly illustrates my point about leverage, though.
How so?
I mean, expanding a clandestine uranium facility is a material preparation for warfighting.
Because of the fallout from the leak itself. When the South Korean unification minister publicly cited open source data regarding that Kusong site, it didn't just make headlines, it actively broke down trust between allied intelligence agencies.
Ah, the diplomatic friction. Exactly. The United States expressed deep concern and frustration because publicizing those locations forces a reaction that can expose classified satellite and signals intelligence methodologies. Do you see the mechanism there? North Korea didn't have to launch a single weapon. Just by building the facility, they successfully sowed division and paranoia among allied decision-makers. That is immense strategic value short of war.
Sowing division is a benefit, certainly, but it doesn't negate the fact that the uranium is still being enriched at a staggering pace. And you have to pair that nuclear expansion with what is happening internally with the Kim family.
The succession planning?
Yes. We are witnessing the highly public grooming of Kim Jong-un's 13-year-old daughter, Kim Ju-ai, as his definitive successor. State media has even referred to her as an acting missile director.
Right.
A regime that is accelerating its uranium enrichment to this degree, while simultaneously securing a dynastic succession in front of the military elite, is bracing for long-term geopolitical conflict and isolation. They are establishing a permanent war footing.
I actually read the succession of Kim Ju-ah in the exact opposite way.
Really?
Yes. Grooming a 13-year-old daughter is, well, it's the ultimate sign of confidence in a nuclear shield. If you are a dictator planning an apocalyptic first strike, a war you know could result in the total destruction of your capital, you do not meticulously plan for the next 50 years of your family's rule. You plan for immediate survival.
That's an interesting perspective.
The public elevation of Kim Ju-ae signals a desire for internal stability and longevity. It proves that Kim Jong-un believes his nuclear deterrent is so absolute, so untouchable, that he has the luxury of planning a multi-decade dynastic transition.
That is a fascinating way to interpret the domestic signaling, but we cannot analyze North Korea as if it exists in a vacuum. We have to zoom out and look at the broader geopolitical alignment. North Korea is actively embedding itself into a larger framework.
The partnerships with Russia and China?
Exactly. Just recently, we saw the visit of Russian Interior Minister Vladimir Kolokoltsev to Pyongyang. We are seeing China actively deploying DF-27 hypersonic glide vehicles, weapons explicitly designed to push U.S. aircraft carriers far past Guam. We are seeing Belarus's president calling for national mobilization, and North Korea has notably signed a friendship treaty with Belarus.
You're suggesting a synchronized anti-U.S. bloc.
It is exactly that. North Korea is integrating its military-industrial complex with Russia's by providing the massive artillery volume and the KN-23 missiles that Russia desperately needs. Pyongyang is freeing up Moscow's manufacturing base. In return, they are highly likely receiving advanced aerospace or submarine technology that they could never develop on their own. This isn't isolated brinkmanship, it's synchronized preparation.
I have to challenge the premise of a fully synchronized global anti-U.S. bloc preparing for coordinated war. Because if we look closely at the facts on the ground, there is a massive critical contradiction in North Korea's behavior right now.
What contradiction?
Look at the current situation in the Middle East. The United States and Israel have been engaged in severe conflicts with Iran. If Pyongyang's ultimate synchronized goal was total global conflict to overwhelm Washington's bandwidth, they would be actively arming and supporting Iran right now. They would be pouring gasoline on that specific fire.
But they have historically shared immense amounts of missile technology with Iran. The Euronews Arabic reports we monitor explicitly detail the foundational role of North Korean technology in Iran's current ballistic capabilities.
Historically, absolutely. They helped build Iran's program. But in this current crisis, the specific intelligence assessments clearly note that North Korea is intentionally distancing itself from Tehran. They have kept Iran at arm's length.
To preserve diplomatic space?
Yes. Why would a rogue state pass up a prime opportunity to bog down the U.S. military? Because of the timeline. There is a massive U.S.-China summit scheduled for May 2026. Kim Jong-un does not want to be branded a co-belligerent in the Middle East right before his primary economic patron sits down with the United States. He is intentionally isolating his provocations.
Well, distancing themselves from Iran might simply be a matter of bandwidth and logistical reality, rather than a masterstroke of diplomatic timing. Their production lines are currently running at maximum capacity just to sustain the Russian war effort and build their own domestic stockpile. They simply may not have the inventory to spare.
That's a fair point on logistics.
And if we want to talk about regional diplomacy, let's look at the real-world impact of the recent South Korean drone incursions.
Right, the unauthorized civilian drones that cross the border.
Yes, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung actually took the extraordinary step of apologizing for those drones entering North Korean airspace, attempting to manage the diplomatic fallout. And how did North Korea respond? They completely dismissed all hopes of improved bilateral relations. They officially, constitutionally, labeled South Korea their most hostile neighbor.
Right, they abandoned peaceful reunification.
Exactly. When a regime permanently writes the goal of peaceful reunification out of its constitution, labels its neighbor the primary enemy, field tests city-paralyzing electromagnetic weapons, and runs its nuclear reactors at maximum capacity, we have to prioritize analyzing their physical capabilities over their assumed diplomatic intentions. The threat is real, it is physical, and it is immediate.
I certainly understand why you emphasize the tactical capabilities, and there is absolutely no denying that the physical threat is severe. The military modernization we are seeing is very real. However, the overarching pattern still firmly points toward a strategy of extreme leverage. If we summarize the evidence for the deterrence perspective, we acknowledge the undeniable qualitative upgrade in North Korea's arsenal. But the absence of a mass mobilization of troops, the careful distancing from the Iranian conflict, and the highly specific timing ahead of the May U.S.-China summit suggest this is highly calibrated brinksmanship. It is a deeply aggressive effort to secure recognition and force sanctions relief.
And to synthesize the conflict preparation perspective, intent is a psychological state that can change overnight, but military capabilities take decades to build. The verifiable realities of North Korea's deep war-fighting integration with Russia, their live-fire testing of first-strike infrastructure weapons, and the irreversible expansion of their nuclear program suggest concrete material preparations for conflict. They are learning daily from the battlefields of Eastern Europe.
Both perspectives highlight the incredible complexity and the stakes of the intelligence landscape we are navigating here in April 2026. As is the tradition of this program, we do not declare a winner. The value lies in examining the mechanics of the evidence through multiple, rigorous analytical lenses, leaving you, the listener, with a deeper, clearer understanding of the geopolitical forces currently at play.
Absolutely. The truth of global intelligence is rarely a binary proposition. It requires constant objective reevaluation of the facts as they emerge.
Which brings us perfectly to the technology that powers our analysis today. Stylo News is designed for exactly this kind of rigorous, multidimensional information tracking. It is a customizable mobile and computer application that provides personal, intelligence-style briefs right to your device.
And it achieves this by pulling from a massive array of data. It monitors over 250 traditional news sources, international reporting, and platforms like X. It analyzes all of this data in real time, so you aren't just reading headlines, you are seeing the entire informational ecosystem.
Exactly. It utilizes sophisticated pattern-of-life analysis to help you see the strategic watch lists and emerging flashpoints that matter most, well before they become mainstream crises. We highly urge our listeners to subscribe to Stylo News to get this AI-powered news on demand. You can find the platform and customize your own feed at www.stylonews.com.
It really is a phenomenal tool for anyone who wants to move beyond the superficial noise and actually understand the underlying data driving world events.
It truly is. Well, as we transition to the close of our broadcast, we want to warmly thank all of you for tuning in to the Friday Debate. We always appreciate the time you spend with us exploring these critical, complex global issues.
Thank you so much for listening. We highly encourage you to reach out and engage with us. Let us know what regions or conflicts you would like us to cover in future deep dives. And be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms.
As we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought regarding the situation on the Korean Peninsula. We spend so much time watching the daily escalations, the missile tests, the deployment of blackout bombs, and it is natural to feel anxiety when we see a sophisticated new weapon displayed for the world. But in the world of strategic intelligence, the most dangerous moment isn't necessarily when an adversary is making a tremendous amount of noise, proving to you exactly what they can do. The most truly dangerous moment is when that same adversary, suddenly and inexplicably, goes perfectly still. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.